So now officially welcome to the very last session of Juxtapositions, Perspectives on Contemporary Cultural Production that I've been hosting here for 3 years, for 6 semesters at the UDK Berlin as part of my visiting professorship for transdisciplinary artistic and design education. And what did we do here? We spoke to a lot of different creatives, a lot of different artists, architects, designers, musicians, dancers, and so forth and so on, that all really didn't fit into one category, that didn't fit into one box, and that were all drawing outside the lines, let's say. Why did I do this? To show you, hello, please grab a beer if you want to. I don't have to repeat that. Why did I show this to you? Because I wanted to show you living examples of creative minds that follow, like, call it transdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, or undisciplinary or undisciplined approach to their practice, and that really relied on collaboration. So I think these are maybe two of the important things that I want to bring across with this series of talks is that, like, don't stay within your silo, don't stay within your terrain, like, be curious about all the other stuff and kind of work with others. So it's always better results with others, you know, like, that's kind of the core message to break it down. And tonight we have Thomias here, the closing lecture, and I'm really, really thrilled about this and really honored. Thomias and I met about a good 2 years ago in Venice, actually, on Via Garibaldi. It's like in the core of Venice during the opening days of the art biennial. I had a project there in kind of hijacking and taking over a little kiosk, and Thomias was invited as an artist in exhibition right across this kiosk. And I witnessed a very powerful performance. It was an experience for me of seeing a painting up on the wall in the courtyard of a former school, and sound playing, like a sound collage rather, with bits and pieces of, I don't know, was it radio edits, but it was spoken word and music, and seeing Thomas perform meaning dance and act and just be in that space. And it took me a while to realize it's the same artist that actually painted that incredible painting that was on the wall, and the one that's dancing, and the one that kind of made that music, or let's say the soundscape in the background. And I was really, from that moment on, I was hooked, and then we got to chat outside, and ever since we've been in touch, and been kind of exchanging in various ways. In the same year, I invited Thomias to be part of an exhibition that I curated called Transgressive. And also Thomias participated in a lecture series that I've been hosting for 7 years at Soho House, and so on and so forth. And I've become a regular visitor of your numerous events. I'm really excited for you being here. But now let's come to the official biography. This was only the personal introduction. Thomias is from France. He's a French-Guadeloupean multidisciplinary artist based in Berlin here for quite a while now. You have a Master of Fine Arts degree from the University of Rennes, and you have by now gained international recognition through many exhibitions and performances. Actually, the last exhibition of yours I saw was at the Esther Schipper Gallery. I think you will show pictures of that. Congratulations again. I think it was a very, very beautiful and powerful show. And as I said, like, Thomias' body of work encompasses a lot of things. Like, it's actually the best example for a transdisciplinary approach, because we have painting, we have performance, we have sculpture, wood sculpture mainly. We have actually short film that are following somehow like non-linear narratives, kind of a bit like a diary in a certain way. And they're exploring very different topics, like from mental health to spirituality and geopolitics, cultural colonization, and epistemology. So there's also real kind of intellectual interest. I remember also actually the first studio visit when I came to visit you at the time in Friedrichshain, and there was this mixture of like paint and canvases and books, and a lot of books, and there's a deep intellectual curiosity behind your very sensual and tactile practice, and that really inspires me too. So it's a very unique fusion of all these different things, and somehow also fragmented, and it's blending then with kind of your Caribbean backgrounds, and also drawing inspiration from ancient history. But all of this we will hear from you in persona. So please all give a very warm applause to Thomias Radin. Stage is yours.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, is it on? Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here, first of all. Thank you to Lucas for making the opportunity for talking today. Lucas already spoke about my view and where I come from. So I come from Guadeloupe. So I will just show you, for the one who don't know, where is Guadeloupe or where is it. Quickly, that's Guadeloupe. This is a very tiny island in the Caribbean. And it's written France because we officially belong to France. It's still a colonial. We are not independent. And we are very close to Cuba, Haiti, and all these different islands in the Caribbean Sea. And Guadeloupe is a very multicultural society. So we are really a construction of slavery. So Christopher Columbus no, he didn't. People were living there already before. But he gave the name Guadeloupe. So before Columbus came, the island was populated by indigenous people, the Tainos, the Arawak tribe who come from also South America. And the ancient name of the island is, there's two names. So as you can see, the island looks like a butterfly. So this is the lowland, basse terre, and this is the highland, grande terre. And the lowland is called Karukera in native language, which means the island of beautiful water. So we have the volcano here, and it's really wild nature. And the highland is called Sibukera, which means the island of gum tree, because we have numerous gum tree on the upper island. And there's a little island of Marie-Galante also. So I'm born there, and I grew up there, and I came quite early in France. I grew up in Paris as well, and I did my study and so forth and so on, but I keep a connection with my island. My parents are still living there. So I grew up witnessing these two different paradigms. And I will say I discovered it much more later, but I will say that's the blueprint for my practice and the multidisciplinary aspect of my work. Because in Guadeloupe also, we have like Indian people from India, which is a product of slavery too. Our traditional fabric comes from actually India. It's called Madras. Sorry for the little back and forth. I need to go to some specific files sometime. So for example, this is Madras. This is the traditional fabric, but this comes from India. It's not Afro-black fabric, but it's the product of the mix of culture. And we grew up also with Indian community, Chinese community, Lebanese community. My mom used to work for a Lebanese owner shop. So we have this really complex mix of people in the Caribbean. And so as you know, painting, performance, culture, and film. And I will say that's the overall topic that my practice is reaching. So history, because coming from the Caribbean, of course, I will say when you're a young man or a young girl, you try to find or to place yourself in history. If you come from Germany, France, or any other country, you have maybe a sense of your history of your country. But in the Caribbean, we come from slavery, so what most of people told you is like you're a descendant of slave. And I never felt really comfortable with this idea because I guess and I felt that there was more. So early on, I developed a very deep interest for history and epistemology and to understand what is the other story, what's different from what we learned from school. There's a sense of geopolitics also in my work, and sensitivization, Pan-Africanism and anti-colonialism, because we have so many important writers from the Caribbean, as Edouard Glissant Frantz Fanon, and Aimé Césaire also as well, who are very important for the Pan-Africanism fight. For example, Edouard Glissant and Frantz Fanon, their books are really the foundation, for example, of the Black Panther movement, or lately the Black Lives Matter movement. But most of these writers, I would say, are not so popular anymore for political reasons also. Sometimes, for example, Frantz Fanon is from Martinique and he engaged in the military in France, but then he realized that even though he was serving France in the military, racism was still very effective. And Frantz Fanon was living in the early 30s, early 19th century, 20th century. And then he gave up his French ID. And he engaged in Algeria, because France was colonizing Algeria. And he was a psychotherapist. So he also bring much revolution to how to treat patients and mental health issue due to traumatism and war. And also mythology is also connected to ancient civilization and epistemology, because I deeply, how can I say this, have a huge affection for mythology, because I would say that's how I feel I'm telling stories in my work, because most of the big myths or the Greek mythology that you know are using a common language, which is metaphor. The narrative is never very direct. It seems very surrealistic, or there is monster, and there is Odyssey, and there is. But the overall of the story is to have kind of a sense of moral or a sense of value, and I always appreciate this quality of different mythology. And I come from also a very Christian Catholic family. So my first experience with art was actually in church. And I always wonder what was this huge painting with the Christ on the cross. And I always felt very close to this kind of story. Of course, psychology, because also I would say psychology is the most important fight in a decolonial approach. Like Frantz Fanon said, I don't want to be slave of slavery, which means that you need to free yourself from your inherited trauma before to even be able to face the world and try to make some kind of revolution. And he read this very interesting book, was called Black Skin and White Mask, where he studied the different social interaction between black men and white women, and white men and black women, and just to understand what are the unconscious mechanisms who are working in the mind and where come from trauma. So also I will show you image of these people because they are very unpopular. I mean, do you know Frantz Fanon? Do you know this face? Yes. Yes, he's the most popular one. Edouard Glissant, speak to you also. This is Cheikh Anta Diop. Someone know Cheikh Anta Diop? Yeah, Cheikh Anta Diop is a Senegalese archaeologist and art historian, and actually is the one who proved officially that Egypt is an Afro civilization. He studied in Paris, and he wrote a PhD and a thesis, and he wrote this book who's called Negro Nation and Culture, and he did anthropological research. He studied language also, and he created the first carbon-14 laboratory in Africa. So carbon-14 is very important because this is how you're able to calculate the level of melanin in the skeleton or in the skin of someone. So I can show you. This is the book I recommend. A very heavy book to read, very complex. You often need to Google terms, but it was it because it really changed my way to look at history also. And I do believe this book should be taught at school, at university, because it will change how people look at history. It's not only one-sided, because so far we learn history from the colonizer perspective, and it teaches you a whole different world. What happened in Africa before slavery, or what knowledge do they have? And you realize that most of the knowledge that we have in the West, or who built the Western society, are also coming from these different empires who are mostly unknown. That's Cheikh Anta Diop in his laboratory in Dakar, Senegal. And he stole a little piece of a mummy. And he bring it to the laboratory and make this test. And In 1972, there was a huge conference in Cairo where he challenged all the experts of France, Spain, and different countries to verify his theory. And actually, he won this during this whole conference, and they need to admit that his research was valid and proper. So I recommend, if you don't know yet, I recommend to read. And there's videos of him on YouTube. He gave a really good interview in New York, and you can have access to it very easily. So to come back to the topic of my practice, cultural alienation, because I grew up in Guadeloupe, and when I go to school, we speak Creole in the daily life, but when you go to school, you mostly speak French. And there's also, early on, you can see that even parents adopt some, I would say, alienated behavior, hairstyles. They don't want you to have cornrows or different things because they want you to fit in society. So, but I have a deep love also for European history. So I was always interested, how do you navigate as someone who's multicultural? Are you making a choice or not? I do think the answer is not to make a choice, because cultural identity is open to everybody, you know. I can speak about Hollywood or anime with any of you because we have this kind of worldwide cultural identity. Of course, I told you about Frantz Fanon, Edouard Glissant. And there's also the dance part, because also professional dancer. I come from hip-hop. And I went to contemporary dance a bit, flow work, capoeira, and also Gwo Ka, right here. And Gwo Ka is the traditional dance of my island, Guadeloupe. So Gwo Ka is a dance was born during slavery, and I will show you a bit more detail after. And you have all the different type of style of dance that I'm going through my practice. And the zone is, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, the zone is kind of a state, or we call it trance, that I'm very interested in, and I research, and I'm very curious to know what happened to human beings, to brains, when you really into this kind of trance mode, and what kind of settings do you create to bring this feeling. And also there's the whole spirituality and metaphysical aspect of my work, I will say, will come from my background. And also in the Caribbean, we have a lot of spirituality, Christianism mixed with Vodou, Candomblé, and it's connected to West Africa and Brazil. And I feel that in my work, you can have this sense of spirituality and mysticism. So there's the relationship to the body and the mind. And this is also, I will say, is really, I will say, informed by dance practice. There's the idea of from the esoteric to the body. So how do you take concepts from mythology and from spirituality and try to embody them through dance? Body and frequency, because I don't dissociate sound and movement. So if we look at hip-hop culture, there's main rules. When you dance, you always need to be on beat. You cannot be off beat. You need to be in tune. It's the music will dictate your movement. And when you look at all the culture from the global south, the sound is the primary tools that you rely on to produce your movement. When you look at contemporary dance, and I teach sometimes to contemporary dance students, and there's not really this notion to intense musicality, because sometimes it can be seen as being alienated to the sound, or people will say, oh, you're not really free from the sound. But actually, it's by knowing the rules that you break the rules. So by being very knowledgeable about how works musicality and sound, you also can reach a high level of freedom in your movement. And vocation and manifestation, the human software and superpower, and to bend time and reality. So I know it can seems very abstract topic, to bend time and reality, and it can seem a bit sci-fi. But even science nowadays shows that we do time travel, for example, constantly. Even now, I speak to you, but in my mind, I can recall a memory from the past while being here, and also I can anticipate a thought. We often think about time traveling in a very cliché perspective, or I go in a machine and I'm traveling in time. No, it's very internal, and it's about the inner life that we have inside. So I try to deal with all this topic in my work, or they are sweating through the work. As Lucas said previously, that was my last show at Esther Schipper Gallery. It was called Hidden in Plain Sight, and the title, I guess, comes from also my interest for this quality of story and mythology to hide secret knowledge or hidden story. So you can see, you can have overall the paintings, this wood installation, this wood arch that I produce as well. Because I come from a family of carpenter as well. From my dad, we are carpenter for 2-3 generations, and I would say that's my way to keep alive the family tradition, even though I'm not as proper carpenter and as skillful as them, but I keep make it alive through my work. And you have this tool drum also as well. I will start by analyzing some painting of mine so you can have an idea or maybe to read the work or to approach it. So this is a painting I did in 2021, and it's called Am I My Brother Keeper? So Am I My Brother Keeper is a sentence that in the myth of Abel and Cain in the Bible, Cain killed his brothers, and God asked him, where is your brother? And he said, I am my brother keeper. And I use this myth and reference because in 2019, 2 years before, I did a performance with my friend Andrzej, who was my dance partner since 10 years. And there's part of improvisation in the piece. And during the piece, I have this really, improvised moment where I hold his locks, with it down, I put it down. And for the audience, it seems like a very violent act, but for us, it's the art, the practice itself. We are very welcoming anything happening on stage. So I reflect on this moment. So I use it as a window to reflect on what we do to each other within the black community. And in the black community, there's still like numerous traumatic behavior that we apply, bleaching the skin, hiding natural hair, and also socially, economically, there is always, I would say, small thing to improve. So I use this opportunity to reflect on what is brotherhood and how do we treat each other, And so I sampled, basically the two main characters that you see is me and my friend. So what I do most of the time, I study my own performances second by second, and I try to fragment the movement and to find strong moments will reflect or will be the starting point of the work. In all my painting mostly start with abstraction, not figure. And I also never sketch my work because I like to say that I'm mostly a painter with the mind of a dancer. So I don't really apply traditional painting technique, even though I use oil painting. But for example, I don't really prime the canvas before. I use rabbit skin glue to stretch it as a primer. And you have this sense of the painting being scratched, but nothing is deleted. I'm constantly adding layers to the work and opening different windows in the painting. And movement embodying the subject. So also I have this different type of body of work. I would say, just to go back a little bit to make it more clear for you, rhizomic movement, rhizome come from rhizome. And rhizome is a scientific term to describe a subaquatic plant who grow from one roots and who can spread kilometers away. But you will never guess it if you look at it from the outside. And this concept of rhizome was initiated by Gilles Deleuze and Guattari, and Edouard Glissant, this philosopher from Martinique. We use this concept to define the Caribbean identity. As I said before, we are very multicultural and we are also kind of a rhizome. One shape will result in many extensions. So I try to do the same for my painting. I don't try to stick myself with one style of painting or a really clear, identifiable identity. I feel very free to where my inspiration goes. And I like to say, like, as a dancer, my idea is the music and I am the body dancing. So I always try to follow the essence of the idea. And that's why I also have a multidisciplinary practice, because some idea I cannot make them in painting, I cannot make them in sculpture or performance. So that's how also the rhythmic aspect is in my work. I try to also keep this freedom because I feel I would say it's maybe a more healthy way for me to produce art also, because I'm more in tune with how I feel at the moment and the idea who are popping out in my head. So you can see, compared to this painting, the structure is much more smooth. the execution was also mostly shorter, and you can see that it's even a bit more dry, but the movement is even more, I would say, efficient. The name of the painting, as you can see, is The Elevation. It comes from also one of my performances I did in 2020 at Oyun. I don't know if you're familiar with Oyun. It's a space in Berlin. Yeah, so I don't also try to, I would say, dictate a narration to the audience. I like also when the work can live through people's eyes and hear their feedback. And you can always see this different, I don't know if I can zoom in, not even. This water element, natural element, and also the color palette. Also, I will say, mostly coming from my island. I have also a bit this nostalgia of not really currently living on an island, but I try to use this kind of color palette often. And you have also this kind of painting. So you need to know that this painting and this painting were painting in the same month, just to show how open I allow myself to be. So it speaks for itself. The name of the painting is La Danse, and even though I can make some very conceptual work and with some depth, I also allow myself to make this really free and open work. And I do believe that it was my most difficult work to do because it's a one-shot painting, which means when I start, I go and happen what happened. And I cannot change because it's turpentine mixed with oil and on a raw canvas. So there is really no mistake allowed. So it's really like, I feel like this is, when I did this painting, that I feel I became a bit more mature in my work, to also let go and don't try to finish the painting, because I come from also a school of painting where I really appreciate old masters, Italian masters, Dutch painting. So I also like this sense of really detailed work, but I felt that this work also challenged me toward my own body of work. Okay, history as an archive teacher. So as I say, I have a deep interest for history and epistemology and to understand the roots of our common history. And I focus a lot because I come from a Christian background, so I need also to, through my way of life, and have different discussions with my family and my parents. You know, you're the new generation, so you often try to challenge them and you have different input because you have access to internet or things that they didn't have. And I realized that when I used to go to church when I was young, few people could give me proper answer about. People know why they are Christian because of slavery and they were converted, but I feel that people didn't have a real choice and a real knowledge of the background. So through my research, I realized that, for example, in the history of slavery, the Pope Pie X wrote a letter to the King of Portugal in the 1400 when they did the first excursion in Africa and the Caribbean. And he wrote this official edict where he allowed the King of Portugal to submit and convert any indigenous people that they find on their way. So implicitly, it means that Catholic Church was complicit from slavery. So again, that's why I'm focused on cultural alienation. What it does to a human when you practice a religion who initially also was complicit to the condition of your people. And it don't mean that you cannot be Christian and black, you can really, but I think it makes a big difference when you understand the foundation of what you believe in and the historical construction, and it allows you to make a better choice for yourself. And my mom, for example, who's very Christian, I never try to tell her, don't be Christian. I just like to have this really interesting conversation to see how then, when she has this information, how she reflects on it. And then this kind of painting come, and of course this painting is in conversation with the Pope of Bacon and the Pope painting of Velasquez as well. And from my knowledge, I didn't know also contemporary young black artists who really deal with this topic in painting. And so, yeah, that's what came off. And also I produced the work, the frame of the painting. So of course you can see this painting is kind of a simulacrum of a Baroque frame, but in a very raw aesthetic. And I don't know if we can see. Can we zoom, Lucas? No, I don't think so. Nah, my finger are not smooth enough, I think. Yes. Okay, so you can see it's very raw, and I stitched the piece of wood. And on top, there is this sentence was written, "A broken culture with no therapy." So this refers to the work of Frantz Fanon and Edouard Glissant, who really went into the depth of the psychology of oppressed people. On the left, there's a sentence in English. It's like, "We both must learn to live differently. You must stop to live in your future, and I must stop to live in the past." So this is also a kind of message to myself, and I had a discussion with my ex-partner, and I used to anticipate a lot of stuff, and it's the idea it's interesting to look at the past and to the future, but also the converging point is always the present. And that's also kind of the idea of this sentence. It's like, you can care about past, present, and future, but also make sure to kind of contextualize for yourself what's happening in the now. And on the left is a sentence in Creole, on my native language. So Creole is a mix of French and Western African languages, like Bambara, Lingala, and Wolof. And I say it in Creole first, c'est « À pas tout dit grand défilé et grands affaires, c'est ça qui a donc qui a compté », which means it's not about the parade and the outfit, what matters is what's inside. So the sentence is bouncing directly also on the grandiose aspect of Catholic Church, and when you go to Rome and all this, the concrete, the marble, the gold, it's also kind of maybe warning sentence. And below, there's a sentence carved. I mean, at the time I took the painting, the sentence was not carved, but now it's carved in. And the sentence is like, studied history is a necessity, and study ED. And I guess you can guess it for yourself, the meaning of it. Because I feel like, strangely, human beings, we have access to history, and we are the only species who use archive, but we have also this, it's very hard for us to use it properly. Because sometimes you can see in society, we keep repeating the same mistake, even though history is a very good teacher to explain to us how society works and human being behaviors. Yes. This painting is called the Phoenix Dance. So this is also another type of painting that I do. Again, the frame, I did it myself, and often I like to say that my painting are also portrait of situation. If you look carefully, in my painting you cannot really identify someone. I'm not interested in portraying someone, but mostly situation of life. So the Phoenix Dance is a reflection that I had based on my own life, and I was at this point of my life where I was looking for renewing myself, and I guess every human being has this feeling at some point to, I would say, upgrade or update yourself or to change some stuff in your life. And I call this kind of phase of life the Phoenix Dance, because you try to be reborn from your ashes. And I end up also having this this painting, and on top you can see there's this symbol can be referred as a moon, because in I would say in spiritual practice or candomblé, Vodou, or even in my island, we always also connect to astral beings. And in different culture, you can find it. Some people, they will cut their hair in a specific moment in a year, or they will wait the full moon, or also how the woman body is connected to the moon cycle. Yes, this painting is called Bigidi. So Bigidi is a dance concept who come from the traditional dance of Guadeloupe, whose name Gwo Ka. And Bigidi, you can maybe feel it in the sound of the word. It's kind of the feeling of, if I say Bigidi, is this Bigidi, is the effect to almost falling. And it's a very important concept in our traditional dance that I try to translate in my painting. So often in my painting, I do many analogies between dance and painting. So I bring dance concept into painting. So there's two dance concepts in this painting. There's the bigidi, which is almost like being on edge on your heels and toes, because in the dance we're always playing with edges. And if you look at a Gwo Ka dancer, you will see it's never stable, because dance is a reflection of the paradigm of the people who practice this dance. And you can apply this analysis to every kind of dance. If you look at, for example, at ballet, ballet is a very good resume of, I would say, European colonial mindset in a way. It's stable on the feet, strong posture, open, and also you need to have a sense of pain and suffering, and really disconnected from the sound. And the disconnection from the sound, because in contemporary European dance, can be seen as a metaphor to slightly maybe small spiritual disconnection. Because sound is always the carrier of what we would call the spiritual moment. That's what helps you to reach this point. So Bigidi, you can see the main character, the main figure is really on the edge, on a cliff, and you don't know if you're going to manage to fall or to come back. And all the white part, or cream mostly part that you can see, is the raw canvas. And often in my painting you can see the pure canvas appearing. And for me, this analogy is the concept of silence. In dance, like when you talk, you need to have, I will say, balance and punctuation in your sentence so people can read what you do very clearly. And silence is a very important moment in dance. So if I do a lot of movement, and I take a break, it's gonna allow you to read better my next movement. So I transpose the concept into my painting, and I was wondering how can I give more space to the pictorial silence. And it's like a game with myself. So with the painting, I will extend this space and reduce my space of painting to see how I can maintain this conversation, even though there's very less painting on the surface. This is another painting, as Icarus. Of course, you know the myth of Icarus. He tried to fly very high and burn his wings. And the myth of Icarus is actually a metaphor for the greed of man, the greed of power and ambition. And I did this painting for my last show because I always try to put my work in perspective of the contemporary world. And when we look at the geopolitics right now, we can feel that we are very on a tense line. We're also kind of a bit the modern Icarus in the Western society. We have at this point to burn our wings. And this painting is also, referring to, you can find different symbols like the beaten apples, you know, but now you can see the apple is more than beaten, it's completely eaten. So we completely went over it. And of course you have different symbols like this dog or this young, maybe child or kid with wings. And of course you can make your interpretation for yourself, what is the meaning of it. I will not reveal everything in the work. And you have this main figure also who comes from dance posture. So what I like with dance movement, and that's why I mostly only use the dance movement for my painting, is like, depending how you decontextualize the movement, it can take a totally different meaning. So the movement will come from this posture. Mostly the characters was on the ground, but now you feel that it's really falling from thousands of miles away. And you have also this kind of hand, who can be seen also as, it's visible, but kind of a more invisible hand, because technically no such a hand can come from so high. So it might be also a last chance, a last hope, you know. So my work is also working with this symbolic input and metaphor. Let me zoom in it. Sorry. Don't hesitate to ask me if you want me to zoom in some works, if you want to see more detail, because it's not easy to...
But it's part of the work.
Yeah, the frame are always part of the work, so sorry, I'm a bit struggling with this thing.
Sorry.
No. I need help. I just need to de-zoom and go back to this. up, up. Bon, I will show you later, but basically it's two figures, male and female, dancing together with wings, you know. It's this idea of togetherness. So the frame are always also a part of the composition. Sometimes I frame the painting even before it's done. Because I don't know if you see the nuances, but the frame are never really the same color because I always adapt the color to the composition of the frame. So I don't produce the frame in an industrial manner just to frame the painting. It's really like an extension and a very important part of the work. That's why sometimes I decide to put this wooden half circle or not. This wooden half circle are often comments on the work, who come to add a bit more meaning sometimes to the painting. So now we're done with the painting. I will talk a bit more about the performance and the roots of the performance. So I will say the blueprint of my performance practice is Gwo Ka. Again, it's the traditional dance of Guadeloupe. And I can read for you. It is mainly played with drums called Ka, or a family of percussion instruments. The other instruments are the shasha and the maraca. The different size of the drum establish the bass. The largest, the bula, play the central rhythm, and the smallest, the marker, or the make, marks the melody, and interact with the dancer, the singer, and the choir. The latter are generally taken by spectators during public performances. Gwo Ka songs are generally guttural, nasal, and raw, although they can also be bright, smooth, and they can be accompanied by increasing harmony and relatively complex melodies. Gwo Ka was born during the period of slavery. This music has its origin in the perpetuation of African music by slaves from the former plantation. The etymology of the word would be the Creole deformation of Gwo Ka, of fat quarter, the usual capacity of the barrel from which the slave made their instruments. We can thus compare it to other Caribbean music, like in Martinique, Belay, in Cuba, rumba, or in Haiti, raising music, or Puerto Rico, bomba. For slaves, despite the prohibition of the Code Noir I, music was a means of fight, escape, and communication, just like the Guadeloupian Creole language. This music, frowned upon for a long time in white society, survived the post-colonial period, asserting itself as the first music and dance of Guadeloupe, until being included in 2014 in the inventory of intangible heritage of France in UNESCO. So, before to show you the video, I show you, that's the foundation of Gwo Ka. We have basically 7 basic rhythms. Now there is 10, but there is 2 rhythms who are barely played on almost lost. And we share, for example, like Mende rhythm, Kalaja, Wule, all this rhythm, you can find them same in Brazil, in Congo, Senegal, and of course it's the slave trade. When the slaves were taken from Africa, they just tried to rebuild their culture, and it created this 2.0 version. So when you go to Haiti, Cuba, you need to understand that it's maybe sometimes the elite of people who were thrown away in the island would just try to recreate their environment. And also, it's a different shift of paradigm because in Europe or in the Western world, we make music on 4 and 8, you know. But in Gwo Ka, you dance on 3 times or 5 times, and it's very confusing. Even for me, I'm still learning Gwo Ka because it's very complex, and there's each rhythm go with a dance, and it's really complex to learn. You break down. You just in a very uncomfortable spot, even though I will thought, oh, I'm a professional dancer, but then you realize you don't really know how to dance. Because when you go to most dance, even in India or in West Africa, you will see the rhythm pattern is much more different. If you took a class of Saba, you will see it's very, very hard because the rhythmic pattern is very different, and it shows also a different shift of paradigm and how you approach music. I will show you a little video of Gwo Ka, so you have an idea how people practice it. And male and female dance slightly differently. So this guy here is the make. So you have the drum with the more high notes, and on the side of him, here and here, is the bula with the more lower tone. You have the shasha, some people have the triangle, and here there is a MC, speaking, and also the audience is working as a choir. So you have answer and response, question and answer also as well. If you look at her feet, you can see what I was talking about, the position of the feet, heels and toes. It's never really flat. And this is in the capital of Guadeloupe. Every Saturday, you have this kind of practice and communal moments. Now we'll show you another one from a different dancer. So this is during a Les Roses. Les Roses is a rhythm also in Guadeloupe, but it's also a specific time and ceremony where you have a game between the dancer and the percussionist. So in Guadeloupe, also in Les Roses and Gwo Ka, I don't know if you notice, maybe it's too fast for the eyes and for the ears, but actually the dancers don't follow the percussionist. It's the percussionist who translates live the movement. So you think it's on beat, yeah, because the percussionist is really translating really live what the person is doing, and it's so much in sync that you have time to tilt. So most people, when they look at it, they say, oh, that's cool, but when you understand the concept, it changes your perspective, also as a dancer. Because here you need to follow the music, but when the dancer making the music, it opens much more, a bigger realm for you of creativity. For example, in Gwo Ka, when you want to change your rhythm pattern, you make a call to the percussionist. So you dance, and tuk, 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 you dance, and now you can change your rhythm, and you go. But if I want to tak, 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 break, and I froze, you need to follow, you know? There is no really rules. I play, tak, 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 chuk, chuk, pum, 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 chup, pam, pam, pam. And so that you can come very close from the percussionist and play with him. So it's like a game also. And now also you have this example, this drunk man, for example, is really funny. We have a lot of drunk men in Guadeloupe. Drunk but very flexible. But now let's go to the real dancer. Yes. Sorry, it's 8 minutes. I don't think we have the time to watch everything, but it gives you an idea how it's working together. And if you can see also, it's losing often its balance, you know? You feel it's gonna fall. And that's the idea of Big D, actually, that as you saw in the painting before. So, I'll just go back to the folder. So when you look at this painting, Big D, you know, now it gives you a sense of the concept that I use in Gwo Ka. for putting in the painting. And I show you then now how in my performances I using the same concept of BGD, but in a much more different way with a different type of performance. So, where is this folder? Short film, performance shots. Bear with me, sorry. I'll try to remember. It's not this one. No. Okay. No. No. So it seems like I'm losing the file. I'll try to find it again. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. So this was in Venice when I met Lucas during the performance called What a Time to Be Alive. So, like I say, my work, I always try to make it to mirror the contemporary time. And of course, it was in 22, we were at the end of Corona, and I just try to reflect on the idea of what it means to be a human being in this complex constellation. How is it to deal with yourself, and then you need to deal with your family and your own mental health, and you need to deal with geopolitics. So what does it mean to be human in all of this storm? And of course, there's the painting that Lucas were talking about, who have the same title as the performance, What a Time to Be Alive. And I use this sentence also as a mantra in my work. So it was the first piece where I did spoken word also. So the performance starts with 15 minutes monologue, where I play someone who seems to have bipolar disorder and have different character into it. But I do believe we are all a bit bipolar, and that's actually the superpower of human being. That's how we are able to think simultaneously in different ways. So that's the idea of concept of BGD, but revisited in my own way, and playing with edges. So you can see my toes, and really, and like in the painting, it's very on edges. And that's the idea of BGD, because BGD is more than just a technique, it's also a reflection of a mindset. So you need to know that in Guadeloupe, people are from slavery. So people never get to know social stability. So when they came to practice also their own dance, they reintegrate this idea of instability of life in the dance. That's why we bouncing and almost falling, but you will see the Gwo Ka dancer will never get on the floor, which I do. I break the rules, but yes. So that's one aspect where you can see how I use the concept of BGD in my painting. And how much time do I have left?
Like 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Wow, okay, I'm gonna get faster. So my latest performance, The Myth of a Trinity 2. So I work with the same team of performers since 10 years. Not because it's a choice actually, because I think it's more than a human experience. And we started in 2014, so now it's 10 years. The first time we did the format of these performances was for my bachelor exam. And we keep going on, and I feel like we're growing with this piece as individual as well. And The Myth of a Trinity come from my first exhibition in 2016, who had the same name, and I just built my own Trinity, painting, music, and dance. And over the years, I keep moving with this concept, and I came with a second piece. And it was at Kindle in Berlin last September. And at the same time, I premiered my second short film called Rival that we shot in Greece. So both are working as one piece, film, screening, then performance. I collaborate with André Bidiamambou, which is a French dancer from Congo. He's coming from funk dance, hip-hop, popping, house, and tai chi. That's the different type of technique he does. The man in the middle is my uncle. He's a Gwo Ka master, actually, and I learned with him, and it's with him that I produce the drum and the sculpture that I will show you later. And the guy on the left is Delaware, and he's the one who do the sound, the soundscape, the main soundscape of all my performances. So I'm only using the same person, also since 10 years, to produce all the sound of my performances. I'll show you a little bit of this piece. So, performance, the myth of a trinity. I will go through it very quickly, just to show you the different steps. The performance is in 3 parts, so it's like a time travel, cultural time travel. So we start with the roots, with the more contemporary aspect of it, and then is ending with, I would say, sense of kind of Afrofuturism or much more innovation. So my uncle started the performance by singing a traditional song. And he said, Mom, I don't want to leave, I don't want to go to Metropole. Metropole is the name we use for France in the Caribbean. He said, life is too hard, it's too complicated, I don't want to go to Metropole, I want to stay here. So, he's singing, we are coming into the performance, and as you saw before, we use the grouping of les roses. So he's translating what we're doing live, but with our own technique. We are not doing pure Gwo Ka dance, we're mixing all our knowledge of dance. Then we go to the second part where you can feel the sound is much more, I would say, ambient, much more contemporary. And also, the background of the story is connected to the film. So also we are kind of these 2 falling angels or brothers who don't manage to really understand each other. So sometimes we are at war, in conflict, we show affection to each other. So you go through all these different moments in the performance. Can you put the song? Okay, and now we go more towards the end, where you can see the sound now start to be even a bit more modern, where we're mixing even something similar, you can recognize maybe trap, mixed with the traditional song of Gwo Ka, which is create a new type of sound. And my uncle is playing on live on top of the sound. So you have an idea how is it, and I really end up with a tiny part. After I try to show a bit of the film, and after and this is one of my favorite parts because this is inspired from Zouk, which is a dance from Guadeloupe. It's a couple dance, very sensual, and often is male-female. You will never see two men. So I did a bit of interpretation of this dance to show also kind of, that the vulnerability also of a human through this dance. And it's very slow dance too as well. To finish, I will show you a little part of the film. It was coming before the performance, actually. So, a little introduction. The name of the movie is Rival. So, as you understand, is some kind of opponent. And we shot the movie in Greece, in Athens and Crete. And we choose this location because the movie is about migration. So the politic have a sub-politic statement on there, but it's through mythology. So it seems a bit sci-fi movie, but it's a dance film at the same time. There's only one voiceover, and we don't talk the whole movie. It's mostly a dance performance movie. And also for historical purpose, Crete is the island where there is the Minoans, with this ancient civilization where also was connecting Africa and Greece.
Jodi jou, moun pa ni pon histoire en via yo. Mi en konba, konta Karukera et Sibukera. Dès l'esprit, qui peut Jean parler en mots. Mais par voilà yo so riche, plein avec toute histoire génération passée. Yo vin pour sentir tout combat attend nous. Témoigner, flot à tout le monde et mouvement sur la terre. Moun qui pa nous en voix, moun l'armée. Qu'on nous.
And also, every location of the film retrace backward the way of the migrants. So this is the official Bürgeramt in Athens. When you go to make your official paper to register, so when a migrant come to the city, you need to sleep in a hotel, make papers, university. So we have all these different locations in the film backwards. I will just move forward a bit, sorry. I wish we could watch more. Maybe we don't have too much time left. So this is the bus station, one of the stations, because many migrants in Europe come through Flixbus actually to cross the different European border. So we already saw the scene of the roof. So as you can see, we come from the sky, and there's also this sense of mythology, but connected to reality. And that's, I think, all my work is about, to switch between these possible stories, but also deeply connected to reality.
Insensible pour vrai. Avec pour côté. Pour moun, nous voyons arriver. En masse là.
So we have a second location, the hotel room, because often when people come to a land, you have barely some coins in your pocket, you try to find a place to sleep when you can still afford it. So we shot also in this hotel scene in Athens. Now we are back to this office scene. And for example, this is a very interesting scene for me, and one of the most important scenes, because you would understand it, but we have this really physical conversation around the table, and we kind of embody two politicians so somehow fighting over resources. Because in hip-hop, we have a technique who's called hand talk. So when the song comes, you dance on the lyrics. So it comes from this technique of hip-hop. We call it hand talking, basically. And that's what we use. I place here property, it's mine, it's yours, it's ours.
rythme-là, rythme, tout système-là nerveux, civilisation à gain, qu'à dérégler rythme en nous, les paroles pas qu'à mâcher, Timon Abel, segmenté en ligne.
That's the University of Crete. So it seems like a labyrinth also. It's kind of a metaphor also to say that, you know, often the second generation of migrants try to have this social elevation by going to study, but also you can also kind of lose yourself in this sense of wanting to elevate yourself. So we also use this location in Crete. And there's also common reference to modern film as Matrix. I mean, you will see. I'm spoiling a bit, but.
This person is not registered. Please provide more information on this case. This person is not registered. Will call you back.
This person is not registered. Please hold the line. Please provide more information on this case.
One of our agents will call you back.
One of our agents will call you back.
Please hold the line.
Please hold.
Sorry, I cannot show more. It's still an ongoing piece, and so yeah. So and this piece is working with the performance together. So people can kind of see us in the film on the screening, but right after we come and dance, as I showed you before with my uncle. So you show a different relationship to the body also as well. To see the two person embodying right after, right in front of you, it's like I like to see it as a kind of TV show, you know. The first season is the exhibition, you can see the painting, and then second Staffel 2 is the film, and then Staffel 3 is the real performance. So you can have a 360, you know. Painting is two-dimensional and fixed, the body is three-dimensional and moving, and so you have all these different types of experience. And I think overall my work is about this idea of how can I exist in a very complex manner? Because human being, there's not an easy way to be, you know? It's just a very complex machine. We are a complex machine. And often we bend under political ideology, and I'm French, I'm Italian, but human identity is much more complex than this. And we cannot just take, and I guess it's also a misconception to think that I can be one thing. We are also one thing in many things at the same time. And I think that's also the beauty about human being, is to the complexity of being, and all these tiny holes and corners in your identity and what you can be and how you can refer to different cultural heritage. Because something who's free is culture, you know? We all know Confucius, but he comes from East Asia. We all know some Greek mythology, but also we know some Brazilian story. And the myths or mythology in general, I like them because I feel like they are also the main story. We always can cross borders. There is no limitation to the story. And they cross centuries and borders, and they are being reinterpreted in so many different ways, because I feel they are very characteristic of the human sense of human nature in a way. So that's what I try to do with my work in general, and is to also be, in a way, very sensitive to what's happening around me in the world, and also to be in tune with what I am also. For example, to be honest, when I used to start to work with galleries, they were very confused, you know, just by my style of painting, because they want me to have a specific style that collectors and people can recognize very easily. But when I told them I do this and this in the same month and this, and how do you stabilize your market, you know? So all this to say that it's not an easy task also to be on this journey, to affirm yourself and find this complexity in being, but it's doable. And many artists did it before me, and will continue to do it. And I feel we come from a generation that you cannot just stuck in a box anymore. You know, we're just way too complex, and we have way too much input, way too much information, and there's way too much hybridation. So yeah, and the idea also is to embrace cultural heritage. You know, I think we are wise enough to also grow up and understand that. For example, if I take Christianity or European culture, I cannot say, oh, I don't like Italian painting because it was the culture of my colonizer. There's different degree to it. There's what the people do and what humans do with culture, and that's the quality of the culture itself and what you can do with it and how you can navigate throughout all these elements. And yeah, I think that's it for me. I hope you enjoy. And I know I didn't finish, sorry. That's the last, the sculpture that I do with my uncle. So the sculpture are a combination of two type of drum. The caron, who come from Cuba, and the ka that you saw before. And basically, I'll show you just like this. Me and my uncle, we did this combination because we used to make this furniture and sell it as furniture design when I was still a student to make money on the side. But then it became much more serious, and also this sculpture are for me the presence of the roots of everything, the sound and the music, from a so very spiritual perspective. And you can see I'm carving movement and patterns, and I'm adding and I'm changing the stain. It's oak wood, and also I'm painting over and carving, and you have all these different versions of this drum. We're also very functional. Sometimes my uncle play for performances with it, so the drum are being activated, and or can just be as sculpture as well. So you can have an idea how it's made. And that's a list of books, I would say, were the foundation of my practice. So Ivan Van Santima, They Came Before Columbus, is an Afro-American art historian, and he showed how before Columbus, the Songhai Empire of Mali already reached the Caribbean, because Columbus himself, in his personal diary, he specified that he found two different types of people in the Caribbean, native Indian, but already West African people who already navigate there. And now there's official proof because they find something called guanine, which is a mix of gold and iron, and it used to be the top of the weapon of the Malian soldiers. And they used to exchange with the native. And they find also manioc, sweet potatoes. We have the same diet in the Caribbean as West Africa. So all these were imported way before slavery. So all this show that there is an history that is still unfold, but that scholars like Ivan Van Santima did already in the 70s, but is still unknown for the mass, I would say. Cheikh Anta Diop, I talked about him before, very pioneer. Mbombason, the foundation of African philosophy, is comparing African paradigm or West African paradigm compared to European paradigm, and he compared the myths and the value exchange in the different mythology, which I find very interesting. Teofilo Benga, the contribution of Antique Africa to worldwide mathematics. So he reviewing all the ancient equation and mathematic technique used already in Egypt. What we use at school, Pythagoras, Thales, already come from this time. And it's been studied and proven many times that it's just a long line of sharing knowledge and you just expand. But for political purpose, we appropriate something and say, it's this guy and this guy. But at school, they never tell us that Pythagoras and Thales, for example, they were student and master, and both of them went to study in Egypt, in Delft, for 22 years. Because back in days, knowledge was initiatic. There was not a school like now. You need to be initiated to have the knowledge. And then they come back to Greece, and then they develop this theorem and make it as we know it now. And the last one is Nusiri Kalala Mutunde. He's from Guadeloupe, and he read his book, Kamit Cosmogenes, and he talked about also, he debunk or study all the Greek myths and how they are connected to the Afro diaspora and also to the black people presence in Europe. You know, often I say to people, there was black people in Germany already in the 13th, 12th century. You go to the museum Gemal de Gallery, you can see portraits of these people, noble family, who just used to trade and do all these things. So it's a very interesting story, and there's always more to know. And I think this is why I have this deep fascination for history, because we're still very far to know or to have a global vision. I will say we have maybe 10-15% of what could be our common history. So I always encourage people to make research and to look. I mean, it's just something very interesting for me. And I'm going to end up there. And thank you for your patience, and I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomias. Honestly speaking, rarely witnessed such a deep and detailed presentation of an artist, and I'm really, it was such an intimate space you created there in kind of showing us, as you said, the complexity of your work, or kind of embracing also complexity. We have a little bit left for questions. I'll ask maybe one or two in the beginning, and then it's up to you to ask something. I've quite a few questions. You said in the beginning you were a painter with a dancer's mind, and you said also spoke about knowing the rules to break the rules. There was a lot of inspirational kind of phrases also in there. But one thing that I found extremely impressive, you said you have no clear painting style, but yet you've shown us sculptures, you've shown us film, you showed us dance and painting, and it's actually a very clear language that you speak.
Yeah.
Through all these mediums. It's very rare that you find someone so... I feel this is just the beginning of a long story to come here. So, yeah, basically two questions, and you can repeat them one after the other. I do believe there's a very clear language to be found. You can to analyze them. Maybe you can try to sum that up briefly. And the other one is that it's absolutely essential for all of your work is the notion of collaboration. You said that you've been working with your partner in dancing for 10 years. Yeah. And it's such an intimate relationship that you created there. To say it in the words of Glissant, there's a poetics of relations between the two of you. It's very in sync. You're reacting to one another. So, like what's the secret sauce behind that? So, first question was, I do believe there's a very clear language, artistic language, and a very profound one already in all of your works. And the second one, what's the secret sauce of your collaboration?
I think there is, you're right. I mean, there is a clear language. I mean, if we talk about the painting, even there is variation, you can sense there is movement. I would say the first language is movement. Because I like to say that movement is the first language of human being before words. Because we use movement every day, to look at someone is happy, is stressed, is your body and your eyes will catch microsecond. When you're in the belly of your mom, she traces your movements. And when the baby is born, he observes the parents and he copy. So movement is always there, and we use it every day. And so, but There's a clear language, yes. It just with time I just realized that for some people who, for the bigger crowd, it can be easy to lose yourself in the. That's why I say this. That is sometimes not easy to grasp. I would say my work needs time so people can grasp really what is it about. Because if you see one exhibition and you don't know that there is another painting, you know, so it's unfolding slowly. And that's what I mean, that sometimes it cannot be so clear for people, even though yet I agree there's a strong identity in it. And for the secret of our recipe, it's a secret. No, but it's just like, I would say is to deeply believe, we deeply believe in what we are and really respect highly what we are. So for example, through my experience here, working as a professional dancer in Europe and with choreographers, often people tend, because it's their project, to submit the person who works with them or to collaborate with them. It's my project, it's my name. But me, I never applied this with Andrej, Delaware, my uncle. We are all existing with our own skills and talents. So for example, that's why the sound artist is free to improvise during the performance, because I trust him so much. And we know each other so well that I know he will do the right thing in the good moment, because it's based on observation and knowing each other. And Andrej, my other dance partner, we know since 10 years plus. We also observe each other, we share common value on life and spirituality, and you know, so we can find each other. So we also, when I perform eyes closed with them. Because some part that you saw in the performances, not everything is choreographed. I will say we have a route, we know where we're going, but most of the things sometimes happen on spot. And people are a bit confused sometimes, how far is it choreographed? And I think that's the magic of it. So we reach this kind of harmony and synchronicity between each other without even talking. Even beforehand, I don't say, oh, I'm going to do this macaco and this backflip and I will go left. No, it's on the moment, because we know the main topic, the main theme, we know the emotion we want to provide, and also we trust highly the skills and respect the skills of each other. And I feel like it, for me, is a much more healthy way to collaborate with people, because they're not suppressed by you. It's still Thomias Radin doing the performance and all this, but they can exist artistically. I don't try to cut them or to read them. Of course, I can give direction, but they can purely exist. And I feel human beings are the best when they can be themselves, you know. And I've been working for choreographer and other artists, and of course, it's just me also. Maybe you don't really work for me. People want to bend you, and sometimes they don't really understand where you come from and what's your best talent or best work. And I feel it says a lot about how we look at each other in society and how we like to collaborate. So that's why I try to push all the time. It's really like make sure that everybody is very comfortable and they can be themselves. Exactly.
It's an extremely delicate call and response that we're witnessing, no? In all of these works. I have more questions, but chance to you guys. You want to? Anyone dares to break the ice? Yes, please.
You briefly touched on silence as a tool in your work, which I think is really interesting in all aspects of arts. And I have a bit of a double question. I hope that's okay. First, if you could touch on your own philosophy on using silence. Is it very is it controlled by your intuition, or is it more planned out? Or and then also I wanted to ask, because you spoke about the traces of the cultures behind the dances, and I wanted to ask if you had noticed like a pattern of different ways of using silence or voice in different dances that are like corresponding to the culture behind it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Can you just repeat the first question? I get the second, but the first one?
Yeah. The first question was
How do you?
just the question of how you use silence in your work.
Oh, I mean, I show it in the
Wait 1
paints.
second,
Yeah?
because for the online recordings we have to kind of always repeat it because it cannot be heard.
Okay,
So the question is a very good one. You talked about the notion of silence. both in your painting as well as in the dance. Very strong moment. And the question was now, what's your personal approach in the usage of or giving space to silence? And the other one is an intricate one that was looking at the use of silence in music and in different kind of cultural backgrounds. Yes. If there's correct.
More
in dances.
In dances, yeah.
Yeah. For the first one, as I show in the painting, I mostly use the raw canvas as a pictorial silence. So I just play with this in every painting I approach. Or I reduce it, or I give a lot of space to the silence, so it became a bit more tricky. Depends also how I feel, because also I don't sketch my painting. That's why I say I paint with the mind of a dancer. I approach the painting like a freestyle, a dance freestyle. So I start with abstraction, I don't really sketch. I will sketch only really late in the painting, but it's going to be very composition sketch, not a detailed sketch. And so that's how I maneuver the silence sometimes in the painting approach. In the dance is the idea of painting and slowness that I really put together, because again, I come from the Caribbean and we have this traditional dance, it's called zouk, and it's very slow. And also we have this kind of cultural cliche on us in France that we are slow people, you know, there's this cliche that people from the south are slow, lazy. And also my alter ego name is Lazy Bird. So I use this kind of negative adjective to see how I will shift it and what I can find, which quality I can find in slowness. And actually, slowness and silence, in my dance, I just also practice in different settings with different sound, or also more ambient sound, who allow much more space and room for the movement. And you need to stress the movement until slow it down, you know. And for example, like silence is not only like a literal silence, like I don't do nothing physically. But if you have a large movement and I start to slow down, and you know, you can feel the silence, and with the speed put behind, it's more clear for the eyes. And that's how mostly I approach the idea of silence, by practicing also in a different rhythm and changing all the time. And talking about the other dance, I'm mostly focused with hip hop, flow work, capoeira. In capoeira, for example, it's not really a roda, but you have this moment of, you have rules and presentation. So the roda is the circle in capoeira, you know? But you have some moment where you come and you need to present yourself to the other person, you know? And you come, and this, I call them silence in a way, or lower expression, because compared to the bigger movement, it's very quiet, and also is where the person show themselves, you know. So that's what I could see, but I didn't also study longer, to be honest, all the dance or Indian dance. I'm not an expert in all the dance. It's mostly I focus on the dance that I practice also, which is house, hip hop, capoeira, and flow work, and Gwo Ka. Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
Beautiful. Maybe another question from you guys. Yes, Ola.
How can you overcome the kind of feeling that you are out of your element as you step into another discipline? And also maybe how do you know what discipline you want to step into?
Yeah.
Do you have an instinct of what is something that you might be good at or you want to be better?
So I repeat this quickly. A question was, because you're transcending so many disciplines, and how do you overcome that feeling of, what was the expression used, overcome? Anyways, leaving your comfort zone, so to speak. Like how do you, and like how do you know which ones you want to enter? For example, at the Esther Ship, for the first time saw that you did a cinematic piece, the Reval that you once showed. It was totally new, I didn't know that. But so it feels like also knowing you for 2 years, there's a new layer coming up, and you're entering a whole new kind of artistic language, or using different tools, and mastering so quickly them. So how do you make that entrance, or the decision to go into a field outside your comfort zone?
That's a really good question. For example, for the film, I had my first solo show in Berlin was at Savvy Contemporary, 2019, and I showed a film called Lazy Bird, actually. That was my first try. But I try to also be very honest with myself. I don't become a director. First of all, I don't hold the camera. You know? I write the synopsis, I choreograph the movement, I use my skills, but then I collaborate. I will not dare to just call myself director and camera guy and take the camera. I do what is in the range of my skills, and if I need to, I collaborate with people. Same for the sound of my performances. Even though I used to make sound when I was young, but I'm not a sound engineer, I don't have this knowledge. So I'd rather to work with someone that I trust and I feel like the same vision as me, so we can make something nice. And that's how I feel confident. I don't try either to step out of my skills or to pretend something. I just stay focused on my language and my ideas. And if really needed, I go. For example, for the sculpture, the drum, I used to work with my dad when I was young as a carpenter, when I used to go to see him in vacation. So I wanted to frame my painting, and like everybody, I went to this framer shop and I saw the absurd prices. And I was like, why you bother to go buy a frame, 500 euro, 200 euro? And it's not even so personal. So I just, take the time. I say, you have skills, you learn, you have a familiar carpenter. And I went, and I to the studio, buy the wood, buy the machine I need to buy, experiment, and build my own frame, my own system of frame. So, and again, I guess this is coming from also kind of hip-hop mentality. I don't have time to speak about it today, but I do believe also that hip-hop is really like holding a lot of resources and values for the world. Even though people only see it as rap, which is only one discipline of hip-hop, but as a cultural, because hip-hop is a culture. In hip-hop, you go by any means. You're gonna find a way, but you're gonna go through it and work it out. If I want to do a movement or a dance style, I will try and bend my body to come to this result. Even though you come from a poor background, you will say, I don't have the most money. For example, on my project, all the projects you saw are self-financed. I don't get funding. So also I work in different fields, bring the money, build strategy. And that's also my mindset in general. When I have an idea, I just try to find a solution to my means. But whilst respecting my boundaries and limits, I don't try to impersonate a skills or a profession. Yeah.
Good one. Maybe one more. I have also another one.
And maybe the online some?
Yeah, online audience, raise your virtual hand if you...
Just start speaking.
Or just start speaking. Okay, no online. Any one of you guys? I'll give another. Maybe you've come up with something. I love the point about hip-hop culture. I totally agree with that. I think there's a lot in it. The cultural impact of it is enormous. Also, this mentality of doing something out of nothing and a very DIY approach. And one of constantly sampling and remixing the already existing that is very liberating as such, and much beyond the kind of the mainstream kind of idea that we have of it. I would like to come to one point. You would talk quite in detail about the frame of your work, or let's say, generally speaking, the framing. If you could go to the slide of the Esther Schipper Gallery exhibition, because when we walked up here before you started, you said that you also went very briefly to kind of an architecture school or interior school. What I noticed in your works from the beginning, whether I saw you in Venice there or here, that you always create a space, which is, I guess, also part of a dancer's mind, because dancing is bodies in space. But here, for example, it appears first that you overlook it, but the upper piece is handmade and carved, and it immediately creates an intimate space, or the one that showed that you had in wedding, where you made this huge mural, and you owned that space. Or in Venice, the painting, the chair, you dancing, the sound. So can you elaborate a little bit on that kind of spatial, almost architectural sensitivity to your work, or to your approach to build environments?
As you say, I think it also comes from dance, and also from my love and interest for spaces and architecture. I did some courses in university about interior design and architecture, because the space I will say, make the experience, you know. You go to a church, you feel something. You go to a synagogue, you feel something. You go to a mall, it's a feeling. It can be cold, it can be nice, but it's very important. And as in dance too, for example, when you have a circle, when you go to dance or a jam and people make a circle, it's human being. But if some people in a group, in the circle, don't have a good energy, you feel it. It's so, I always try to make sure that people enter in a realm, or they feel in a specific spot where also the peace can exist. For example, this huge wooden piece, I was discussing with the gallery because they never did such a thing before. It's a niche. It's not so big actually, and usually they show one or two paintings, not much more. And I came with the idea, and they were like, oh, that's a bold idea, but let's see. And I did a 3D plan. Because I felt the way, when you come to the gallery, you enter this side. So also, we don't see now, but the slides, there's carving drawing, but you can see it's moving. So when you come from this side, you don't see the drawing on this side, you see the one unveiling on the other side. And when you come from the other side of the gallery, you see this drawing there. So also, it creates motion in the space. It forces you to look at the space from different angle. And that's what I like also about work or life, when you can look at someone or a situation from different angles. And I like the idea also of temple, you know, to enter in a sacred space. Because I also consider my work like, in a way, sacred or I take it very seriously. I'm a contemporary artist and I do painting, but I do believe that even though there was not all this, I will still have this relationship to painting, because in a way, maybe in a very naive way, I do believe in the power of what I create. And this is a cultural heritage also, that where I come from, you believe in what you do, even the smallest thing, you believe that there's a power in it, or there's a consequence on the environment. And so that's why I always make sure to bring this atmosphere so people can sense it, because sometimes you cannot grasp everything in the meaning of a work, but I just hope that also people feel something when they come. Yeah.
But now hearing you say is interesting, and you just mentioned the Horda and Capoeira when you enter, but it's also a circle that you enter, just as in a, I don't know, whatever, like a dance battle. Yeah. There's a space given, a circle that people kind of enter, and that's kind of what you somehow recreate in your exhibitions as well.
Even for the performances, I always put the audience in half circle or circle, for example. But this comes from my study of different ritual and dance practice in different countries. And if you look, that's why in the beginning I put human software and superpower, because I compare us as a machine. There is software with inside us, but we don't pay attention to it because we use it so often that it's not obvious. For example, when you go to a club, or you go to a party or to a ceremony, automatically people will do something or will move in circle, no matter where you go. And it's an informal language. We don't say to each other, oh, put you here. Humans do it. And now when you know science, you know that it's the frequency of the sound. We reflect on the people. But this is also ancient knowledge that people were aware of. So that's why also when I perform, I always try to put people in circle, because the way the sound navigates and the perspective that people have of me in a 360 isn't a flat vision of me. So, and I put them also very close, not like in a big stadium. I always try to have people very close to me, because I feel also the body is like a Wi-Fi, and more far from you, less you feel. So if I come really close from you when I dance, or I step back a bit, it's a complete different feeling. So I try to have this kind of informal architecture all the time. I have circles, who contribute to the energy, I would say, of the performance or the room. Yeah.
Beautiful. I just looked at the watch. We're going slightly over time, but I mean, continue forever. And there's such a deep work. And again, I've seen a lot. It's rare that you get that deep into an artist's mind. But we come to the very final question of the juxtaposition theorist, and it's the same one that I asked each of the speakers. If you have any kind of final piece of advice, is actually a shitty word because it sounds so like I know things, but any kind of learnings that you would like to share with all the becoming artists, architects, designers, musicians, dancers, and so forth, that you wished you would have known earlier?
Yeah, very important. Basic, don't let nobody tell you no, it's not possible. you can be pragmatic about stuff, but there is a way. If your mind, I like this idea. I forget who told me this, but it's like if your mind can create the idea, that's when you can bring it to life. It's gonna be long, maybe complex, maybe heavy, maybe annoying, but you need to have this confidence that, not an arrogant confidence, but it's just like, and I feel our society is hard to be confident sometimes, especially at the time we live in, but there is a way to be you, you know, and to be you means to not fulfill what people expect from you, and it can be difficult sometimes, but you will find, I don't know, I can just speak for me also as well, and you take it as you want for yourself, but I find fulfillment to be myself, in a way, and to don't leave some part behind, you know. So it's a long process, it's hard, so just try your best to be you in a complex way, and take your time, because I'm a very impatient person, and I need to learn to be patient. So yeah, be you, try to be you. It's not always possible to be 100% you, but try to be you and to enjoy every process, even the most weird part of you, except killing people, but is just enjoy.
Thank you. It's really, really beautiful and such a deep, personal, vulnerable, powerful talk. So I'm very thrilled and honored that you kind of finished this lecture series. I'd like to thank you all for being here. Some of you for more than one semester, some of you for all 6 semesters. So it's been a pleasure, it's been an honor, it's been a great ride. So let's give a warm applause to Thomias. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Like we do in dance, thank you to the technique. Important. Some clap, please. Yes. You know. Thank you to Lucas. Huh? Is your last one or?
It's the last one.
Is the last, guys, it's the last one.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you also for mentioning that, Jakob. You rocked it here over the last couple of years and made it possible both online and persona. If there's any technical questions, you can come to me afterwards. But thanks again. It's been very, very precious. Take care. Man, what was that?
Thank you.
Nice.